everyone's talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I think a lot of horror fans could be reminded in some ways of another film that very infamously had a completely different cut, which was heralded as a superior version and was later released to the public. And I'm talking about Halloween 6. So if you don't know, you can check out either Dustin McNeil and Travis Mullen's Taking Shape or Taking Shape 2 to find out more about the production behind Halloween 6 and how we got to that point. Or you can check out Fractured Franchise Part 2 on this very same channel. So much like the Snyder cut, people heralded some sight unseen. The producer's cut is the superior film. I'm just going to throw it out there. Both films are terrible. I was tasked by my friend Jock and a few other people to continue this reanimated concept in video form on the YouTube channel as a video podcast of sorts. Jock threw a challenge at me to start, giving my ideas of how I would fix certain problematic films, and Halloween 6 is a great example. So, kind of inspired by the Snyder cut, I want to get into a few things that I would probably change about the film. First up is probably the main thing that derailed the course over the series of the franchise is the family aspect. So I think there are many ways you could do this. I know they'd be clunky. I know they'd be pretty cheesy, but I think it serves a greater purpose in the long run. One could have planted phony adoption papers in Michael's file, or maybe it's a clerical error. Maybe there was a Myers daughter that was orphaned around the same time Laurie was orphaned and then adopted by the Strodes. Maybe her last name was Myers. It was just a different family. And you could play it off as rumors or a clerical error or something to that extent. But, something recorded incorrectly. But I would first of all, during the course of the film, not right off the bat, but during the course of the film, remove that family lineage. I'd probably do it in relation to the whole cult, which is another huge issue for me. So the Strodes would still be the Strodes. That's fine when they move into the house. But there's just no real link to the Myers family through Laurie, because it's not what we've been led to believe. I think that'd be easier to take than Michael being controlled by a cult. But that again brings us to the second thing. I would take the cult and I'd expose that the cult is bullshit. Not that the cult doesn't exist, but, and I think this could be done easily through reshoots and dialogue, is maybe Wynn believes and the cult believes in Wynn, but it's all bullshit. He can't control Michael Myers. And I would probably lean into Michael's evil being more Lovecraftian. I just watched the remake of Castle Freak and it was freaking awesome. But there's more movies I'm noticing, like The Void and other movies like that are leaning into Lovecraftian explanations of the universe, the old ones or the ancient ones. And I think I'll do another video on this again and maybe have Anya Stanley on to talk about it, but it's something that we've talked about on Twitter, that Michael is his evil can be easily related to that Lovecraftian style of ancient evil than to just the boogeyman or a family cult. So, or a family curse. So I'd say remove the family curse. It doesn't exist. Wynn believes it exists, and I would have Wynn, like a cult leader would, believing his own bullshit, and I think arranging some of this stuff to happen to carry things out ritualistically, because maybe he thinks that if this all happens, then it'll balance the world and evil will be gone, and this old Celtic shit that maybe he was taught from his grandmother. And maybe that's why there's the tattoo, because maybe he's branded Michael or whatever the case may be. But again, I'd kind of scale that back. The cult's not controlling Michael. The cult is worshiping Michael. The cult sees Michael as the deliverer of the savior, essentially an antichrist. But yeah, the cult's bullshit. It's not controlling Michael. So that whole notion is ridiculous. And there's another Lovecraftian notion. Again, I'm not the biggest Lovecraft guy, but there's another notion of people going insane trying to figure out the old ones or what that kind of evil. And I think that you could show that happening to Wynn. And I think with Wynn trying to control Michael and understand him, maybe he recognizes, because he says it in one of the films, I think it's a producer's cut, Sam, it's a part of you, it always has been. Well, we always talk about Michael surviving being stabbed and shot in the eyes and all this stuff and falling off of buildings. But look at Loomis. Loomis was stabbed numerous times. He survived being blown up. He survived a stroke in Halloween 5. He's gotten his ass kicked many times, and just like Michael Myers, he comes back for more. So maybe Wynn thinks there's some kind of link, or maybe this magic that he thinks Michael has kind of infected Loomis as well, which is why they're kind of conjoined, like yin and yang, yin and yang, yin, yang, 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 yin and yang. Jesus Christ. So I'd kind of lean into that more, where he just is so obsessed and believes it, and he actually thinks he controls Michael, and then you have the big scene. I would do the scene at the end with the operating room, because I don't think Michael's gonna take orders from him and scrap the end with the rune stones and all that stuff and the pipe. I think Wynn thinks he controls Michael, but he doesn't control Michael, and he learns that the hard way in that crazy operating room massacre scene, which I think is good to leave in there. And I would have the cult being a sham, like I mentioned, almost like QAnon, where like they really believe him and they believe Michael's the savior, this dark savior, this antichrist, but it's really just a black hole of bullshit. And I did think of something kind of I thought was funny. Maybe Wynn pulls like an Edward Nygma from the end of Batman Forever, where he goes crazy because he thinks that he's controlling Michael, he's in control of this cult, and he's got it all understood. And the more he tries to understand it, he goes crazy. And when he realizes that Michael can't be controlled and that there's no curse and this cult is bullshit, and his house of cards comes tumbling down, and he's also sacrificed his career for this, he has a mental break and pulls an Edward Nygma, and maybe he thinks he's Michael Myers. So he gets at the end maybe locked up in Smith's Grove, and you see him standing there, and and then maybe he keeps saying, "I'm the boogeyman," or he's thrashing in his cell with like a homemade, maybe he like rips a piece of his linens off and puts it on his face like a homemade Myers mask, And so maybe you pull down the cell bay, and you see like different crazy prisoners, at Smith's Grove locked up. And maybe there's a girl that's, echoing Laurie from the first movie. It was the boogeyman. And then you have Jack Sayer in the cell next to him, Reverend Sayer, right? Maybe he's there, and he's been committed, and he takes on maybe like a Loomis-like tone. And he's like, "As a matter of fact, it was, partner," or whatever he would say.
"Oh, you're a pilgrim, all right."
Just imagining Jack Sayer so crazy he's imitating Loomis in the cell. Thought it'd be an interesting little addition to the end of that. Another thing I would do, I mentioned the family link. No baby. Fuck that baby. Forget that baby. The baby was a MacGuffin anyway. It goes along with this cult ceremony. It was gross having, spoiler alert, having Jamie and Michael had this child. Daniel Farron's never intended for that to happen, according to his interviews, that it was left up in the air as far as he was concerned. Or maybe it was a win, but it just was a bad idea. But yeah, I'd say no baby. If you can, cut the baby out of much of it. And also, Jamie's not Jamie. I say Jamie, like Dr. Evil. Jamie's not Jamie. What I mean by that is, in the beginning of the film, multiple people are referring to her as Jamie. I would cut all that out, cut the birth scene out, cut the baby out, and just open the movie with Michael chasing this woman away from Smith's Grove. And maybe you have some reshoots where you show just some very simple things, like here's this woman, they were together, and maybe you go back as the story progresses and you tell the story. But instead of it being Jamie, leave it up in the air, leave Jamie's fate up in the air, and then somewhere down and toward the middle or the end of the film, maybe reveal this woman to be a crazy woman from Smith's Grove who thinks she's Jamie, is obsessed with Michael Myers, and maybe the only one who really thinks it's Jamie is Loomis and Tommy. So maybe that kind of shows that dynamic there, that they're so obsessed in tunnel vision that they know something's going on, but they don't know what it is. And then that would leave the door open for Jamie to come back later on in another film if she decides to come back. That was an important character. That was a big mistake. Or they could have had J.C. Brandy come in and have a scene at the end with Michael. But I don't know. I think leaving the door open for down the road is better because the character needed more. I think at that point. At least this would have cleaned up some of the clutter, and it really would have been closer to the theatrical release, except I would have still used Alan Howarth's music instead of those weird guitar riffs. Ugh, and that guitar theme. So embarrassing. So, a couple small details that would have had bigger implications in the long run. Because really, Michael Myers, what made him scary was he was an unexplainable character. And I think you could do things a lot differently and go farther with things if you left things open and not explained. Or at least just make it's so crazy that it can't be explained and you can't understand it anyway. In fact, I might even change the Man in Black. I know it would make sense still for Wynn. I would change it in this way. Danny's not evil. Take that all out of there. There's no voices. There's no Nightmare Man. Instead of him waking up because he hears the voice, maybe he just has a nightmare, as a child would do who's in a new house. And you could do the same thing, just cut the Man in Black and the voice out of there. I mean, they're in the Michael Myers house, for Christ's sake, and his mom's up listening to the show. The other thing I would do is, and this would make more sense, is take it back to its roots of the original film, and instead of Michael just kind of doing the bidding of the Man in Black and the cult, which to me went completely in the face of Michael Myers, have him come back, and maybe Danny sees, almost like Tommy Doyle in the beginning in part 1, maybe Danny is seeing Michael out the window in the morning, and he's trying to tell his mom, but she's got stuff going on with her dad and the whole fight over breakfast. And then put more scenes of Michael stalking people, and maybe he follows Kara from there as they go to school. And then it makes sense when he comes back later, because just like the first film, he sees Laurie and her friends, and he sets the trap in the fun house. I did it again, Dr. Evil. He sets the fun house for Laurie to kind of set everything up like this big elaborate practical joke, which would make sense for him to come back if he's fixated on Kara and her brother's girlfriend, and really focus more on the town banning Halloween, and maybe that's why Michael's come back. And then maybe what's happened is after Halloween 5, Michael's been captured. Whatever happened, whoever came in tried to blow the building up, it wasn't Wynn. Maybe the Man in Black was someone who had a vendetta against Michael Myers and knew that he wouldn't stay locked up. It would make sense for someone like Sheriff Meeker, because he was there. He was involved with Loomis the whole day, but he probably had other stuff going on. He could easily have been moving around in stealth. I mean, he's a freaking cop. But some of the things don't make sense. The only thing I really liked him for on that one was that Michael had killed Sheriff Meeker's daughter. And to me, that was like that vengeance type thing. Like, okay, now I got you where I want you, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to massacre you. But then he escapes, or Meeker dies trying to kill him, and then he's captured, and Michael's taken into custody back to Smith's Grove. The other thing I thought of was maybe Sheriff or Deputy Hunt from Halloween 2. That could be another one where he comes in and tries to kill Michael because he wants to stop it, and then he's at Smith's Grove. And then maybe that's the other thing too, is it could lead to another idea I'd had, which I'll talk about again on another episode. Turn Smith's Grove into like Arkham Asylum, and you could do a movie there. And maybe that brings up Jamie Lloyd, or maybe she's there, maybe not. Maybe she breaks in there to face Michael. You could do a million things. But now you have these characters there, so maybe Deputy Hunt is there. Maybe, like I said, Jack Sayer's there. And hell, maybe Loomis winds up there. I don't know. Another thing with Loomis, too, it was incredibly dumb and short-sighted to include Loomis on a cliffhanger plot and to be a big factor in the next film when he was in failing health. So that, I understand why they wrote him out there. You could change this whole trajectory with a sound-alike, shooting around him, or a body double for certain things. But yeah, I just think getting back to the original and Michael being obsessed with Kara because she has a kid, it reminds him of Laurie babysitting and his sister babysitting. So I think with those changes, you can still keep the majority of the film, but just little dialogue exchanges, a couple of cut scenes, and I think you're in business. More stalking, more Michael, more, instead of the family thing, now it's just a natural thing. He goes, because it would make sense. He goes back to his house. It would make sense that he fixates on this family, because he goes back to the house the morning after he kills this Jamie imposter, and he sees these people in his house, and they're leaving and going to school, much like he saw Laurie in the original film. Like, it was all right there. They kind of did this stuff, but they kept the family thing in. I think if you would have leaned more onto the traditional babysitter murders approach, you really could have kept it simple and streamlined, and it was all right there. It was all there. Yeah, hopefully that was good. They didn't set the bar very high. Now, I've talked about how I would fix Halloween 6, and I'm interested to hear how you would fix Halloween 6. Would you leave it alone? Would you roll with the theatrical cut? Or what would you do? Like, if you had Final Cut, what would you do to fix Halloween 6? Let me know at bshowbrian@gmail.com, or leave a comment under the video and let me know. But I'm out of time, and I'm getting tired. My name is B. Show Brian. I'm getting old, and I'll see you next time.